You're listening to How I Met Your Monster, a podcast that explores the introductions to your favorite movie monsters. My name's Zach.
I'm Danny.
And I'm Casey.
And together we dive into the world of horror to find out how filmmakers have introduced us to our favorite monsters time and time again. This is How I Met Your Monster.
Boss, you opened it. We came.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left.
Explorers in the further regions of experience. Demons to some, angels to others.
Call you Meatloaf.
Surprise, Sydney.
Thank you for joining us on a brand new episode of How I Met Your Monster. Today we have two very special guests with us, and we're missing one. Casey is not with us because she's apparently allergic
Terminally
to
ill
fun or something. Whoa, Danny, I don't
with the sniffles.
Terminally ill with the sniffles, yeah. We are here today to talk about Norman Bates, one of the OG monsters, I guess you could say. But we do have writer and director of the brand new film, The Welder, David Liz, with us, and joining us as well is his producer, Javi. Guys, tell us about The Welder. I watched it today, and it's wild.
Oh, thanks, Zach. I appreciate the compliment. The Welder is a film that came out of a love for filmmaking. I've been wanting to make a feature film for about 10 years. After film school, my goal was, let me make a feature film as soon as I can. And very soon I realized that film making is very expensive. It's difficult to do. Obviously, in film school, you had like your entire cohort helping you make your short films. And so you felt supported, and, the school gives you all the gear, and if you have a question, you go to the teacher and they help you out and all this stuff. So I'm like, I'm ready to do my first feature. And then, reality hit me right in the face. So it took about 10 years to really gain the experience through working on sets, doing my several short films, and meeting really, really cool mentors along the way. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, I linked up with Manny Delgadillo, my co-writer, and another one of our producers. And him and I just clicked right away, and we said, hey, how about we partner up and write together? And so we started writing and writing. We wrote a bunch of scripts, and we realized all of these ideas, as amazing as we thought they were completely impractical for us to execute on our own. So, hey, why don't we do this? Let's make a film that we can afford to make. Let's give ourselves some boundaries. Let's write a script, because, they teach you in film school, write like you have no budget, like you have $1 billion, and then hone it in. So we're like, let's write like we have like a lot less than that, and then we'll hone it in some more.
Constraints are good.
So that's what we did
with the creative process. That's where you get like those crazy ideas. You're like, oh well, we can't do that, but we could do this, and like that's sometimes where the best ideas come from.
Danny, you are on the money. That's exactly how we felt. We're like, man, now that we're limited, we feel more creative. We feel like, we can actually possibly do this. And so when we're deciding what we wanted to write about, we knew we wanted to stay in the horror genre, and we knew we wanted to have a social message. And so as we're like going back and forth, and Javi was in the conversation too. Javi's one of our collaborators too in the writing room.
We meet together at Lion Cafe, and we would like talk about the script like once a week.
Yeah, there's this really nice Cuban restaurant like down the street from where we live, and we'd have like Spanish ham croquetas and a nice like Cuban breakfast. That's we're like talking ideas. Yeah. Oh man, they loved us there. As a matter of fact, every time I go back, they're like, "How's the movie? Is it coming out anytime soon? I want to see it." Like all the old ladies, they love me. They gave me free Cuban bread. I'm like, ladies, come on. I'm trying to like stay slim. I'm trying to keep my figure. But yeah, they still remember.
That's great.
Our time there.
That's amazing.
So so then we're like, what can we do? What's the catalyst for the social message, and also like the horror element? So Manny says, I think I have an idea. He says, when I was a kid, my dad was a welder, and he would take me sometimes on the weekend to his shop. Sometimes he had a little extra work he had to finish. He'd take me to the shop. There was a TV there. Manny would watch TV while his dad worked. And then from time to time, his dad felt like playing a prank. So he'd turn off all the lights. And then Manny's dad would hide like in a corner wearing the entire welder's outfit, a mask, a suit. And he'd have the blowtorch.
Jeez.
And then Manny would be a little kid. He's just walking around like, Daddy!
Scarred
And
for
then
life.
he'd come out with the blowtorch.
Oh my God. That's great.
Manny's like, I'm still traumatized.
Right.
Childhood traumas last a long time. And that was the catalyst for the welder. We're like, man, this is perfect. The welder, he welds things together. It's great,
That's when you know it works, when you don't have to force the pieces together. You're like, wait a minute, it's all just kind of like A goes to B, B goes to C. Like, this is so, it almost feels like it already exists. That's when you know the idea works. Such a good feeling.
Yeah, like Manny was so traumatized as a kid, and it stayed with him. And look, now we made a movie out of it.
That's so great.
Cool.
Childhood traumas, guys. That's definitely like the starting point.
Yeah.
At least it was for us. And I'm so grateful that Manny still pees his pants a little bit whenever he remembers that memory. Thank you, Manny. Love you, man.
He can't watch Aliens because that blowtorch just comes on, and it's,
dude.
to borrow a quote,
I
game
feel
over.
like, for me, it was the movie It. That's what traumatized me. I was like, probably like 4 or 5 years old, and my mom, she doesn't speak any English, still doesn't. So like, we're flipping through the channels, and she sees a thing with a clown, and okay, so she leaves me there watching the movie.
David's gonna love this. Yeah.
He's gonna love this. So she goes and like goes to the kitchen or does something else. I don't even know. And soon after that was the scene where like there's blood coming out of the bathroom and all this, and I'm like, she comes running. So that traumatized me.
That's great.
For a while, I couldn't see anything red. I couldn't see anybody with like any girl with red nail polish or anything like that. It just freaked me out. Weirdly enough, I wasn't scared of clowns like after that. But
now you love the color red.
And now I love my favorite color.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Beautiful color.
So tell me a little bit about your location for this movie, because it all takes place kind of on this farm, kind of like in like a swampy area. How did you guys go about filming that?
Well, we definitely needed to find a place that felt isolated. So an hour or so south of Miami, there's a farming community called Homestead, and it's very close to the Everglades. And so there's a lot of wide open spaces. So when we're shooting, when we're finding a location to shoot at, we're looking for these like vast properties, and we just kept getting rejected. They wouldn't want us to film. Obviously, low budget. We didn't have much money. So finally, we come across this creepy looking house, and the nicest old couple, the Coppolos, they're like in their 90s, and they're just the sweetest. They sell eggs, for money, and they're just so nice. I mean, there was a problem though. It was a tiny property, only 3 acres. So we're like, oh my goodness, how do we cheat this? So even though the movie makes it seem like they're in this isolated, huge property, we cheat it to make it look that way. But it's really just 3 acres. And it's awesome. Like next to like a main road. So you see like cars, like we had to really play our angles. Yeah.
It's like the Stuart Little house. It's like this tiny little house in the big city. But if you're just focused, then.
Exactly. But it was cool because like we had to, because of budget concerns, we had to, find a one location where we can pretty much shoot everything. So we had the house, we had the pool area, we had garden, we had like a little flower area that you see in the movie. So yeah, it was a very big area, and we were able to shoot on all the different parts of the property together.
How long did you have the house and the location to shoot?
We had 9 days of total production, principal photography. Wow. And we actually had the house for 6 days.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So like our method was, all right, so this scene, we're going to do it right here. And then we're going to turn the camera this way. And we're going to film that scene over there. Smart. And then we're going to turn the camera another 30 degrees. And we're going to film that over there. And it's all different. And that's, yeah, a lot of people ask me, how did you do that in 9 days? And I'm like, we basically didn't sleep or slept very little, like 3-4 hours a night. It was pretty terrible also in the sense that it was the summertime in South Florida, 100% humidity the entire time. And I was always like yelling, we need to go to the store to buy this. We need to go buy that. And then Javi was like, because Javi's like on set. So he's one of the producers. He's one of the co-creators, but he's also the UPN. And so he's like on set, like putting out fires and, you know, just making things happen.
Like David would be like in one corner of the property, like filming a scene. And then I'm on like the other side of the property, like making sure like the set is ready for the next shot or the next location. Wow. You know, so it was like, so I didn't really see a lot of what he was filming, because I was like around making sure everything was ready for like the next shoot because we didn't have enough time. Yeah, so we had to like shoot one scene, then run across to the other side of the property and shoot the other scene.
Oh my god,
man!
Yeah, it was.
It reminds me the way you describe it reminds me of like the way a sitcom is shot, where you have like one stage, but you have different sets, and you're just kind of moving the camera into the different sets.
It was something like that, definitely.
And it was so hot, and we barely ate. Like I lost 20 pounds during the production because
from sweat, man.
That's we beginning of August, like the South Florida heat, it was brutal. Like
this whole thing reminds me of all the things you hear about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre shoot.
Oh, totally.
Where it's like August in the middle of Texas and everyone's sweating. You have no room and you have to use all your resources. You know, they use like the same stretch of trees and just like turn the camera and it looks like she's running through a whole bunch of trees, but it's really like the same little bit. Yeah, you guys nailed it.
It reminded me of that. The house that we shot in, the second floor had no AC at all. It was over 100 years. So we would have to shoot scenes up there for like 20 minutes and come back down for like a 20-minute break because it was like scorching hot in there.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was. So it felt like Texas Chainsaw Massacre because they shot it in the middle of Texas in August and like the summer. Yeah. So it was very brutal production too because I read about that production.
Yeah.
Jesus.
It was, but you know what? It was filled with challenges.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there was this like weird yet beautiful peace between the cast and crew.
Yeah.
Because it was chaotic, but everybody like wanted to be there. Yeah. And everybody wanted to like do their role the best that they could under the circumstances. Yeah. So like we didn't have any like ego issues or like like you know just some bickering and you know which is normal, but but it was just like to me in my memory I just remember it being maybe because I was so enthralled in the moment because I not only was I directing, I was also DPing and camera operating.
Oh right, so, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it looks gorgeous.
Thank you, Zach.
Well, like that makes sense though because at the end of the day, you guys are creating something. And, you know, we were talking about the creation of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Zach you had recommended that book that Gunnar Hansen wrote about the making of it.
Chainsaw Confidential, I think.
Yes. And there is that same kind of feeling where everything that he's describing is like horrible. Like all the conditions, everything just like you feel like someone's just describing a terrible experience. But underneath that, you feel that through line of just like excitement and positivity. And it's kind of like you're saying, like, it's hard to explain why that's happening, but it's there.
Yeah. People just want to make movies. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
That's
and
awesome.
There's something to be said about that feeling you get being on set, right? Like there's like this, like there's nothing like it. At least for me, I just love being there, like seeing actors completely enveloped in their roles and
it must have something to do with the fact that, you know, you associate playing pretend and make believe with childhood. So the fact that we get to do it as adults is almost surreal. It's like, wait, are we like, did we beat the system? How is this?
It's crazy.
So it's like you can't help but it's like magical. You just can't help but be excited about it.
All right. Well, are you guys ready to meet our monster, Norman Bates?
Yes.
Freaking do it.
I'm ready.
Okay, so 1960, Hitchcock comes out with one of the best movies of all time.
Mm-hmm. I could watch the original every day. It is like comfort food. It is so good.
Yeah, it's so well done.
So tight. It's so clean. And
the music, wow.
And like the choices, like to me, like that one scene where the girl's driving and like you're hearing all of the things that are happening in like real time, but like wherever she's coming from, right? Like, I mean, what an interesting idea. I don't think I've seen that again in a film where why wasn't that copied? Like that's such a great.
It's funny, and I know we'll rein it back so that we can like really get into the introduction. But I was thinking about that scene specifically because when she's driving, it's all like she's just going through like anxiety and stress. You know, she's kind of like. So I was like, are we hearing what's happening, and we're getting sort of like a voiceover, or is that her playing it in her head of like, oh shit? Because
could be,
because ultimately she gets to that point where she's like gonna do the right thing. Remember, she's like, I'm gonna go back, before Norman kills her. So it's like maybe she did make that all up, and like everyone actually is just worried about her, and they're not.
And even the little subtle things that a lot of people don't know, like when she puts the money in the purse at the bank, like she has a white purse, but when she steals the money, the purse is not black.
Oh, so it's like so interesting.
Yeah, so like these little cool things Hitchcock put in it, like to show that, oh no, she committed the evil act, you know, now that like she has a black purse.
Well, I feel like we're going to unpack a lot of that later too, because so much of this movie is about like identity and the fact that like she changes her car, and obviously Norman changes his physical identity and all that stuff. So see, that's what I love about this movie. It's always like the little things that you're not registering maybe consciously that end up being, you're like, oh, that's why it's like hitting me different than other movies.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like a weird structure too, right? Because it's like the first 45 minutes follows her journey, right? But then like the next half of the film or 2/3 of the film or whatever. I mean, it's weird. Like who you think is the main character, she still remains the main character because they're referencing her and all this throughout, but it's just weird for her to like die and then there's still 2/3 of the movie.
Well, right? Exactly. Right. It's literally Psycho's kind of like 3 movies. You have like a getaway crime thriller, then it's a slasher, and then it's like a murder mystery. And it somehow is like cohesive. It's like
I don't know. It's like I don't know how he did it.
It doesn't make sense, but it does.
It's like in the parlor scene. Like my parlor scene is my favorite scene.
Me too.
The conversation they have. And then like you get the angle, the low angle shot of like the stuff out in the back while Norman's talking about his mother, and I'm like, okay, like that's really
you could
awesome.
peel so much from that moment of like what is Hitchcock consciously trying to tell us with like the different birds that are in the room, or like the way just the fact that like he's so on the nose about the subtext. You know, he's basically telling you what the themes are throughout the movie, but somehow still makes it feel like it is subtext. You know, like the whole, I don't know. I always pick up something different.
The parlor scene, they're talking about each other, and then like, you know, Marion's like, oh, taxidermy, that's like a weird thing to do. And like, he's like so unsure of himself, but then when like she starts suggesting, oh, let's stick your mom in an institution, he sits up in his chair. He's like, my mom in an institution? Like, what are you talking about?
Yep.
Like, that's my mother. I love her.
Yep.
When he's talking about taxidermy, he talks about it's all pretty cheap except the chemicals. The chemicals are what keeps you going. And then at the end, they talk about his mom being like so well preserved because of whatever he was using to keep her body fresh. And I was like, oh shit, that's what the chemicals. That's what he's using the chemicals for. And that was one thing that, you know, on a repeat.
But she looked like a skeleton.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
But she didn't smell.
But she didn't smell. There we go.
Well, that's the thing too. I guess. I mean, this is going off on such a different tangent, but they mention, you know, you find out that he killed his mother and she was buried. Like they the sheriff mentions that he was at the burial.
Yeah.
So I was like, so Norman clearly went and dug her up. So I don't know. There's a whole timeline there that I'm so curious about, like how he did it, how he got away, how no one suspected the fact that the grave.
Well, I mean, the psychiatrist at the end mentioned that he's like, oh, there was like they buried a weighted coffin.
Oh,
so
that's
yeah,
right.
But,
Okay.
So then, but then I didn't really pick it up until then because the psychiatrist like breaks him down like psychologically, like his condition, and then he says like, oh yeah, he poisoned his mom and her lover, and then he buried them. They got buried, and then he unburied them, and he just put a weight in the coffin, and yeah.
So he did have to unbury them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Norman.
Now, have you guys seen any of the sequels?
I've only seen part 4, but I've been dying to watch 2.
I saw 2. 2 is actually pretty good.
That's what I hear.
Because he gets out of the psychiatric part, and it's very cool, like how like he evolves.
Okay.
Okay.
And
is that also Hitchcock or no?
No.
No.
Was,
he only did the
what was it? I know Mick Garris did 4.
And Anthony Perkins himself did 3.
Yeah, Anthony Perkins directed
right.
part 3. Yeah.
Maybe that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
So Perkins is still playing Norman Bates in part 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And 4.
And 4. Okay.
And then did you guys see Bates Motel? Because I really liked
I watched
Bates
the
Motel.
first 2 seasons. And for whatever reason, I dropped off, even though I liked it.
I thought it was an interesting, like, prequel, like, Norma.
Yeah.
Like, like, get more info on their relationship. Yeah. That was pretty cool.
I think the only thing that lost me on the show was I almost would have loved it to have been a mini series or just like a limited season.
Yeah, it kind of dragged on around season 3 or 4. Like, all right, you got to.
I kind of just want to. I'm totally fine with like kind of expanding with characters, but I was kind of just like, I just wanted to look at Norman and Norma. Like they're so fascinating.
No, I mean, I thought Freddie Highmore did a great job.
Oh, so good. And Vera Farmiga is just like on another level.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't meet our monster until, like we were talking earlier, how this is like multiple stories in one movie, but we don't meet Norman until like 25 minutes in.
Right.
And he's so likable at first.
So
yeah.
A little bit weird because I did notice like when he's coming down from the house when Marion gets here, like it's raining, but he doesn't open up an umbrella, and then he gets to the front of the office, and then he's like trying to open it. I'm like, why are you opening it now? Like you're not wet anymore. You're underneath the roof.
That's interesting. Almost like it's just like a facade of like basic human behaviors is just like for show.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so weird to him that he doesn't really know how to act like a real human,
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that.
And one thing about that, when he invites her up to dinner, he's like, come up to my place. Like, I'll come back down and get you. He's like, take off your wet shoes and like, I'll bring my umbrella.
Yeah.
Like
who says that? That's so weird.
Why take off your wet shoes now? You're going outside. What the fuck? But yeah, that first time that him and Marion meet at the hotel and they're in the front office, he's just like a nice guy. And you know what? Forget Gus Van Sant for a second. If they remade this again, Andrew Garfield.
Oh yeah,
100%.
Oh yeah, he'd be perfect.
Sure. I've always thought of it. Yeah,
Andrew Garfield. Yes. He looks like him.
He does.
Like Anthony Perkins a little bit.
I actually posted something on Twitter a while back where it was a side by side of them, and I was like, if they ever do like a remake or like a making of Psycho, Andrew Garfield needs to play him.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah, a making of Psycho.
Yeah.
What about when he goes back up to the house and Marion is looking out the window and we first hear Norman and his mother arguing back and forth?
I know, right?
That was creepy.
He does a really good female old lady voice, right?
Yeah.
I can just imagine him filming it. Like he's just talking to himself, like off screen.
He's just doing a one man show, just killing.
Yeah.
Now my question is, when he's doing it, is he in the same spot or does he jump from spot to spot?
He's like, when he has makeup on, he's like, oh, fuck, okay, let's do this. He's like, Jesus, this is exhausting.
I know, right? I wonder, like, the old lady voice, was that actually Anthony Perkins, like, doing a fake voice, or did they just get... Because it sounds really like an old lady.
It must have been someone else. But that's where it straddles the line between, like, psychosis and, like what that really means, like what was going through him, like the fact that he could, for lack of a better term, like transform into his mother. Like, you know, it's like one thing to put on the, you know, the physical, you know, like the wig and the dress, but then to like embody her and then to have that voice kind of takes it into this level of like, wow, we really don't understand like what it is he's going through, which makes it so much scarier.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's creepy too. Like at the end when the cop brings him the blanket and then like you hear him like in the interrogation room, like, oh, thank you, my dear. But like the normal voice, I'm like, yeah.
Because you could almost, it's fun. Like it's just off enough where you're like, okay, maybe that's his voice and he's just doing an impression, but like it's just, you know, it's just off enough where it throws you.
So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Norma Bates, her voice was Virginia Gregg.
Son of a bitch.
I knew it. It sounded too much like a woman. Like he couldn't fake his voice that much.
Maybe he just had like a recording device, or he just like he knew exactly where to like set it and just responded with like pre-recorded audio.
And she was also the voice of Norma Bates in Psycho 2 and 3.
Nice.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Man.
I think 4 had what's her name? Something Hussey. She played Juliet.
Oh, Olivia Hussey.
Olivia Hussey, yes, thank you.
Yeah, from Black Christmas. Yeah.
Black Christmas, that's right, yeah. I feel like she doesn't get talked about enough among like horror fans.
Doesn't. I mean, Black Christmas is like considered one of the first slashers, like modern times, you know?
Oh, speaking of, one thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that obviously there's like that whole thing where Halloween was deeply inspired by a lot of things that happen in Psycho, like even like the use of the name Sam Loomis, and then from there Scream was inspired by that. I made like a list of a few references that I noticed, and one of them, I mean,
sweet.
I mean, it was it's a very short list. It's like 2 things because then I kind of like lost track of it. But one thing that I noticed that I never noticed before was the fact that when the cop who's following Marion, when he parks across the street when she's exchanging her car, it's literally the same exact scene, or not literally the same, but it's kind of a replicated in Halloween when Laurie's in the classroom and she sees Michael across the street and he steps out. Yeah. If you look at it, it's almost the same exact framing. And I was like, how have I never noticed this? Like, it blew my mind. Wow. I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
I also wondered too why Sam Loomis, why that was the name that stuck. Because then you have Sam Loomis, obviously, in Halloween.
Yeah.
And Billy Loomis in Scream. And then technically Sam Loomis in Scream 5, when you find out Samantha's last name was Loomis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wondered that same thing too. I was like, why Sam? Because he's not he's not like, I mean, he's a major character, I guess, but he's not like the central character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was kind of odd.
Maybe it was just generic, but just enough where it was like I don't know.
But that cop was creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why
didn't the tight shots when like he puts his head in the window and like you see the sunglasses. Mm-hmm. I'm like, damn, okay, all right, get it all up in her car, man. Like, relax.
Yeah, like why didn't he say more things?
Yeah,
that was weird.
Like he was just his sole purpose was just to intimidate her, basically.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, okay, thanks.
And then even like when he like pulls over, she's about to pull away with the car, and he's like, okay, I'm going over there. And he gets out of the car and he's just like walking slowly, kind of like the T-1000?
Yeah.
Like the Terminator. Like doesn't say a word, like say something. Yeah. What the fuck?
Who is also a cop. That's funny.
Now, okay, this asshole guy, Tom Cassidy, with the $40,000. What a douchebag. Oh my God.
Sounds like Yosemite Sam a little bit, doesn't he?
No, and then like there's like a weird line. Like, I'm gonna find her and I'm gonna like skin her or like knife her.
So that's the thing. So there's like this running theme through the movie where it feels very much like, especially with Norman, but then when you like think about all the people that Marion has to deal with, it feels very like men versus women. And at first I thought this was like I was digging too deep. You know, like we talked about we just did The Shining recently, and there's that documentary Room 237 where it's 237? Like yeah, and they pull out some like really strong theories. But for as many strong theories as there are, there's also some that are like, I think you're maybe digging too deep. But I think the thing with Psycho that is interesting is I was thinking about it. I can't help, and maybe it's because I just love Anthony Perkins' performance. I couldn't help but like sympathizing with him a little bit. Not as obvious as a killer, but like what led him into this part of his life. And that kind of like sent me down like a deep dive of just like finding out like little bits of like what went into making the character. And the fact that I was like, okay, so he preserves all these birds. He's got this obviously issue with his mother. He killed his mother. He kills this woman. So like on the surface, it seems obvious that like, okay, Norman hates women. And then you see all these other characters. It's like, it's men versus women. And then he even mentions how he doesn't stuff like beasts. He stuffs birds. So it's like, okay. I was like, that feels very obvious. But then I read an interview in which Anthony Perkins said, who was a closeted gay man, who had said that he played Norman as a gay or even possibly bisexual, or at least just a queer person, although he never made reference to this. So you have like this like queer coded sort of subtext. And he even mentions like, he has a quote that I wrote down where he says, we're all in our own private traps. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I feel like there's more to why Norman does the things that he does.
Yeah.
And like even Marion says something to him. She says, if anyone talked to me the way she talked to you, but Norman's talking to himself because he is playing his mother. So it's like, he's criticizing himself. And then every time there's like a woman or like, it's like he hurts them, but it's only when Marion is naked and quote unquote, not to say nudity is like synonymous with sex, but I think in Norman's head it is. It's not until she's naked and vulnerable that he kind of channels his mother as like, oh, that's inappropriate. So he kind of uses her as kind of like a vessel to say like, I need to kill that. And then I was like, I feel like that's coming from, and I may be going way too deep on this, but it feels like it's an extension of his shame and that sort of self-hatred. And he's sort of killing off this part, like he's becoming the aggressor, you know, he's killing the bird. So, you know, like that's on the very literal level. And I just like, I don't know, it just made Norman as a character and just what the movie was trying to say about men in general and like certain stereotypes and certain not shortcomings, but just like, I guess like society pressures and like what that makes men, how it makes men behave. That
like,
it just made
like,
me
more like gender roles. Like what's your
totally. Yeah.
Like what's the role of like how he's supposed to be like a man, you know?
100%. Like he wasn't killing her because she was a woman or because he was like, he felt superior. It was almost like there was so much repression in him that he had to lash out and like kill off this, what she represented basically. Cause it kind of exposed all of his fears and insecurities, you know, and maybe because he kind of like lives in his own head, it was just exacerbated. So you're kind of seeing the worst version of that.
Yeah.
But I was like watching it, I'm like, and then once I read that interview with Anthony Perkins, I was like, son of a bitch. I was like, I think I love this movie so much more. Like, I just, So anyway.
Yeah, I never got that. I never got like, I never felt that he was playing, you know, a gay character at all. Obviously he's playing a very strange human being, but that's more his psychological condition than anything else. My wife, she's a psychologist, and we were rewatching it as a refresher for today's conversation. And she was like, man, like they depicted this person with multiple personalities very accurately because, you know, based on her studies and stuff like that, it's exactly how it would play out. Well, obviously somebody that goes, not only has a psychological issue, but is also a criminal. So the criminally insane.
Yeah.
So like at least it's pretty textbook the way they wrote him.
Yeah. Maybe that's what's throwing us too, is we're not maybe he went into it with that being like kind of the background, but we're really not seeing the queer aspects. We're just seeing the repression. You know, we're just seeing the fact that he won't. He's almost playing it on like so many levels. He's playing gay or queer, but as someone who won't accept that, you know, so it's like it's buried down.
Yeah, I mean, it was the 60s, man. You know, it was so taboo back then. I would imagine it must have been terrible to be gay back then because
totally.
I mean, goodness, can you imagine?
And he may not even understood like what that was because of like how he was raised.
Although it felt like to me that whenever he first meets Marion, it felt like he was attracted to her. But then obviously we know he goes to the house and his mom tells him that he can't be with her, that he can't have lunch with her or dinner with her. So it's like it's himself, right?
Well, that's I think what throws us too is like, is he channeling his mom as he remembers her, or is he using her as like a scapegoat to be like, I don't want that, and I need you to tell me that I don't want it?
I think it's like half and half because I believe that they mentioned that in real life she was kind of like a bitch, right? She
very controlling mother.
And she was very controlling, and she got with another man right after the death of his father, and that pissed Norman off, et cetera,
and I
et
think
cetera.
also like I think he feels really confident when he's like either talking about his mother or being his mother. Like he always has that, like it gives him a boost. Like he's so insecure as like Norman, but then when like you see the creepy aspect of Norma, like psychologically, like in the party scene, like he sits up and he's like, "Yo, what the fuck? I'm not putting my mom in an institution. She's my mother."
It's whenever he's not himself. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like that split personality, you know, of like he's confident as Norma, and like he has to like embody that character for a certain moment.
Maybe, you know, I mean that who is the real person there, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, or maybe even at the end of the movie, you could argue that Norman is more Norma, or you know, or he's more his mom than he is.
It's
himself.
Even the psychiatrist is like, "Oh, I didn't talk to Norman. I had a full blown conversation with Norma."
Like, it's like he's safer. Again, like to kind of, and again, I'm just going off of how he said that he was doing it. It's like he clearly hated so many parts of himself. Maybe because of how he's raised. Again, maybe because of just the times he was in. Maybe it was just like kind of a bunch of things sort of like adding to that. But
like even if you don't see Norman like Bates Motel, like you can kind of make the assessment he did have a fucked up childhood, like overbearing mother, like it fucked him up like mentally for life, you know.
Javi, didn't that happen to you?
I was waiting for you to burn me with a fucking comment.
Give us your best. Give us your best impression of your mom.
Not here for that one.
The
twist in this episode is you're going to become
guys.
Norma Bates.
Now you know why I had Javi come. You know the real reason. Oh man.
Yeah, that's the thing about this movie. Like you can psychoanalyze it and like try to like break it down. Like Norma is like a cocoon for him. Like he feels safe as the character of Norma. And then when he's not Norma, he's like insecure about himself. He's like stumbling. You know, even when Abogast like comes to press him about like Marion, he's like he keeps slipping up and he's unsecure and he keeps giving out information that she was here. You know, and he's not confident. But then like when he kills her as Norma, like, and then that awesome fall down the stairs shot, which is ridiculous.
I feel like the first time you see Norma, and isn't it like, at least for me, my impression when I first see Norman in the dress and the wig or whatever, he doesn't seem that confident. He looks angry, but there's like something about his body language, something about the look on his face that doesn't give me confidence. It gives me like he's still uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Even as the character that he's most comfortable in. I don't know if that's saying something about like just his overall general mental state or
totally.
Or not.
Yeah, like it's not quite black and white almost. You know, it seems like he's channeling some kind of power through that. clearly. Like he's not only as a killer, but like you said, like even his personality seems just kind of like changed.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's not like, I don't know, like Jekyll and Hyde, you know, like he didn't make a full transformation. It's not like he becomes the monster. It's like he becomes the monster, but he's still, you know, struggling so much with like who he is. It's just like a constant battle.
The psychiatrist said at the end, like he created this illusion of that his mom is still alive because he can't bear the fact that like he killed his mom.
It's like a coping mechanism. Who knows what he was like before his mother died? You know, I mean, I'm sure he was a little strange or whatever.
Yeah, Bates Motel covers that a lot.
Oh, well, I didn't see.
I keep mentioning it, but it's
to that point, like everything I was just trying to unpack with like the whole his identity, like it could just really be just that simple, where it's just he killed his mother and it just fucked him up. You know, it could just be as a little bit more black and white, where and now he's just struggling with that.
Yeah, but he has. You have to get to that level of like you're gonna decide to kill your mom. Like
that's true.
Yeah, if you're gonna kill your
there's something there.
Him and, like, he was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna commit matricide. Okay, I'm gonna kill my mom.
I think it's like you get taken to like the edge, the limit.
Yeah.
And that happens over years and years and years of abuse. I don't know if you guys saw this. It's like a viral video right now. It's a camel that kills its owner. And right before the camel attacks, his owner slaps the crap out of the camel. And that was, pun intended, the straw that broke the camel's back. And he grabs the guy and lifts him up and literally like mauls him to death. And you know how many times that camel was smacked in the face, was abused?
Sure.
I mean, I think it happens with humans. It happens with us too, man.
Yeah.
You know, where
like something happened. Like I think it was in Psycho 2, like that flashback where you see him. Spoiler alert, where he hits her with the shovel. I think that was in part 2 or part 3. It was one of those. So yeah, you see like something happened that he was like, okay, enough. I gotta kill her, and I gotta kill her lover. And
Psycho 4 is all about. It's basically all flashbacks. So you see, and I haven't seen it since I was a kid though. So
yeah, me neither. It's been a while.
But I know it's something about like you see him, and I can't remember what it is like that sets it off. But I know that she was overbearing. I know that was like a whole part of it.
Yeah.
So hold on. In the other Psychos, when do you see the actual mom?
I haven't seen 2 and 3, but I know 4. Yeah. So 4 is all about he like calls in a radio station and he's like, I'm Norman Bates, the famous killer. I want to tell you my story.
Okay.
And most of the movie is basically him as a kid. It's actually played by
Henry Thomas.
Oh my God. Thank you. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And like, is the mom played by the same one that does the voice?
No, this one's Olivia Hussey. So it's her younger.
Okay.
Yeah. And Norman is very young at the or I guess not very young. He's maybe like teenager, preteen.
Yeah.
But it's a lot like the show, like you were mentioning, Bates Motel.
Yeah.
But like condensed.
Do you guys want to talk about our favorite reveals?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Mine's kind of unoriginal, I guess.
Okay.
It's the shower kill. It's when we first see Norman as the quote unquote monster.
Yeah.
Even though we don't really meet him, but he's just like a silhouette of her. But
yeah,
it's just so iconic. It was hard for me to just pick anything else.
So I'm going to cheat a little bit.
Okay.
Because it's not the first time that Norman is introduced to Marion, but it's the time when he brings the dinner back down to the hotel because his mom and him and his mom had a fight. And you see as he's talking about hhis mom and he says, what does he say? He says, "Mother isn't herself today." And when he's saying that, his reflection, there's a very clear reflection of him in the window as he's standing there holding the food. And it's just, there's one of Marion and two of Norman. And I
Oh,
just thought that was pretty fucking cool.
I didn't pick up on that.
It's not completely original. You see that a lot in movies where people are talking and there's a scene where they're talking into a mirror or something, and you're like, okay, well,
sure.
Right. It's showing subconsciously that there's two personalities there, but I just thought it was really cool. So,
yeah,
that's great.
My favorite reveal. I mean, this is probably the most obvious one when you first see Norman dressed up like his mom. Like, to me, that's like it's like this moment where I think like the movie is been around for so long that maybe some people picking up on just context clues in society and like, just there's this movie has really made a dent in the culture and movie. So you kind of like know, but then when you finally just see him dressed up, it's still shocking and strange. And it, to me, that was my favorite reveal. Definitely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, to that point, it's funny because the great thing about this movie is it has a twist, but it's not lying to you. It's giving you all the evidence, all the facts.
Right.
But what it does, the scene that I think helps throw you off the case is when Lila and Sam meet with the sheriff and his wife.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And they start telling you that they basically make you think like, is she still alive? Like, it's taking all the attention off of Norman. You're like, something's up with Mrs. Bates.
They mentioned to the sheriff that like, even Arbogast like talked to the mother, and then like we heard about the mother, and then like you get the reveal of the sheriff like she's been dead for 10 years, bro.
Yeah. And the fact that you see Norman carrying her.
I picked her outfit that she was buried in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could even up to that point think like, okay, maybe something's up. Maybe Norman's lying. But the fact that you see him carrying her, you're like, oh, she's right there. Like she's alive. Like why? You have no reason to believe she's dead unless you're like taxidermy. But that's like,
right?
Yeah.
All the echoes of the mother, like before you finally see the mother at the end, like the high angle shot of like Norman taking her down the stairs, and then like her leaving the shower, her like coming out of the room to stab Arbogast. Like it's just.
I actually, when I was in college, I watched this with a friend of mine and his girlfriend, and he had never seen it, but I just assumed that like it's Psycho, like what happens. Yeah. Or maybe it was like it's an older movie, so it won't affect him. I swear to God, when I say that they were like on the floor, like yelling, they were like, "What?" I was like, "This is the greatest feeling in my life." Yeah. It was so satisfying. I was like, "Oh my God, this is happening."
You got transported to 1960, like when it wasn't part of the like cultural zeitgeist, and like nobody really expected it or knew it, and I'm sure that Hitchcock must have been thrilled just sitting at the back of the theater and watching everybody just shocked over and over again because there's so many reveals in this movie. It's crazy.
Yeah, this is good.
It's crazy. What a satisfying feeling as a filmmaker, right?
I tell David all the time, if I had to go back in time and see like one movie in theaters, it would have to be Psycho.
Yeah,
like, I would have loved to have been there like in 1960, just like in the crowd and like them losing their fucking minds of like, what the fuck is going on? Like I've never seen a movie like this before.
Right. Well, now it is time for a segment that we like to call The Real Monster.
Run, run, run as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man. You're a monster. I'm not the monster here. You are. You and the rest of that fairy tale trash poisoning my perfect world. Now tell me, where are the others? Eat me.
I have two real monsters for Psycho. I've got Tom Cassidy, the fucking douchebag with the $40,000, for a few things. Number one, he comes in and he says, it's hot as fresh milk out there. That's disgusting.
No.
And he's just a fucking creep, like leaning on the desk and he's like talking to her. He's like, oh, she was flirting with me. I was like, dude, she was trying to figure out how to steal your fucking money. But my number one real monster is Norman Bates, but not for being a psychotic murderer. My real monster is Norman Bates as a hotel manager. He literally says to Marion Crane, to the lady who he just rented a room to, when they're about to eat, he said, "Hey, it might be nicer and warmer in the office."
Yeah.
Basically saying, your room is cold and trashy. Come into my office and let's eat dinner.
It has a hole in it where I can peek in and watch you get naked. Come into the parlor where it's and then he's like, "Oh, come into the office. Actually, come into the parlor." Right?
Just come deeper and deeper into this.
Yeah, just wait. Come into my cellar.
Yeah,
come into my sex dungeon. Just keeps escalating.
Buffalo Bill's gonna be down there.
Yeah.
Why are there so many dildos in this room? Don't worry about it.
It's part of my taxidermy.
Yeah,
They're stuffed dildos.
these are real dicks.
Taxidermy penises.
Why is this one so little? That was my father's. Oh no!
Wow, a lot of varieties here.
Oh boy, that's good. That's good. I like that one.
So yeah,
You know
Norman
who I
Bates
think
as
is
a
the
hotel
real
manager.
enemy, the real villain in this movie?
What's
I
that?
think it's that cop. He's so like,
Oh, totally.
like he pulls her over, or actually she's asleep, right? And he wakes her up, and he just starts digging for no reason. Sure, she's a little bit, I guess, quote unquote, suspicious, but she's more like nervous than anything else, right? She's like a woman all by herself on the road, and she just decides to take a little nap, and then this cop just keeps like asking her questions, and then he follows her to the car dealership, and he's just staring at her
Very predatory.
blatantly.
Yeah.
And like the way that they cut back to him over and over and over again, and like just like builds the anxiety, right? I don't know. He was kind of a little bit of a villain to me. That's the way I saw it. You know, hey, I love cops. I have friends that are cops. So this is not like a dig against cops or anything like that.
No, it's just this guy.
Just
This specific character in this specific movie was a little bit of a weirdo, in my opinion. That's it. That's
like
that's
literally all he had to do was say like, "Can I help you with anything? Like, are you okay?"
Yeah,
He's like a very aggressive cop because like he follows her, gets off on the highway, then like meets up with her, and then parks across the street where she's buying the car.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
I was gonna say like Michael Myers, but Michael Myers did it like him. I was like, oh, wait, that's the whole.
I thought the movie was going to go in
about
a different direction too, because they spend so much time on this cop, and then like whenever she pulls out of the car dealership and he pulls in, he says, "Oh," he talks to the salesman. "Let's go into the office or whatever. Let's see what there's something fishy going on here." But then you never see him again.
Right.
Like
that's funny you say that. I wonder if they did that on purpose, because if you think
like
about
a red
it,
herring?
the fact that we don't, red herring, like we don't know who the psycho is. You know, there's even, if you think about it, Marion is kind of the quote unquote villain because she's the thief in the beginning. So for all we know is like the audience could be thinking, is she the psycho? Because when she's driving, if you remember, she's driving and we were talking about the voiceovers and hearing everything. She kind of has like sort of like wicked smirk on her face.
Yeah.
And at that point, we still don't know, like, where is this story going? And ultimately, it's like, wasn't really going anywhere because she gets killed off. But maybe they did that on purpose. But
true. Yeah. I mean, that would make sense.
Because I never really thought about that consciously. Like, they really do stick with him for such a long time.
One cool thing too, that I'd like to mention is kind of like going back to just some of the genius Hitchcock put into the movie. My wife was mentioning, remember I told you she's a psychologist, and she's like, isn't it interesting that the house that he lives in is 3 floors, and it's just like Freud, he has like his theory where like we all have like the 3 levels or whatever, and like the top floor is like the super ego where the mother lives. The middle floor is like the ego where Bates lives, and then the basement is like the id, right? Like
damn,
where the corpse is. So hey, she's a smart girl. That's why I married her.
That's great.
That didn't come from me. That's all her.
We'll give her an official credit.
You heard that?
That's so cool. I love that.
She gives a thumbs up.
Never ever even thought about that.
I love that.
Javi, do you have a real monster for Psycho?
Maybe her coworker. Her coworker was trying to like push tranquilizers on her.
made a note of that. I was like, what is this? I know it's 1960, but
and then she was like, my husband didn't like it when I told him it was horse tranquilizer. Like, ha 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 ha. You want some? I'm like,
she like pushes it several times. Like I think 2 or 3 times.
She kept pushing like, Marion, you want to be a pill popper with me? Like,
yeah.
Well, let's be honest. Was it her or was it Hitchcock? Was he pushing it through her?
True.
Yeah, true.
She's like, he was flirting with you because he probably saw my wedding ring. So that's why he was flirting with you. Not because you're more beautiful, younger, or whatever.
Yeah.
We could have just as easily pivoted and like made the story about her. And we could have gotten an equally interesting story.
I'm like, yo, dude, how bad is your life if you're taking horse tranquilizers?
It's crazy.
For real.
I think that is Hitchcock's sister.
Really?
Oh, really?
Okay.
I think so.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Hitchcock, he always puts himself in the movie. So like, you see him on the street corner.
see him on the street in the like they're in the
corner when
office.
Marion comes into her job. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Hitchcock was pretty skinny back then. I was like, is that him? He looks so skinny. Because I'm used to seeing him bigger, fatter.
He would always find interesting ways of putting himself in his movies, like on Lifeboat. Like obviously he can't put himself in the movie; it's in a fucking lifeboat. So when they're reading the newspaper, like you see a picture of him in one of the stories.
Oh, nice!
That's awesome.
Nice.
By the way, I kind of did that in The Welder. There's a scene where, and you probably missed it, where like one of the characters is reading a newspaper, and you see a picture that's actually a real newspaper. And 2 or 3 days before that, they came to set and took photos of us, and then they printed the paper, for it was a Homestead newspaper, and we got a copy of it. I'm like, let's put ourselves in the movie.
That's so good.
That's awesome.
You'll see us for a second, for a moment.
Well,
That's
and David, I think you have one of the framed shots was like your grandfather.
Oh yeah, and then like one of the scenes, like when they're in the kitchen, not in the kitchen, in the living room, next to the kitchen, you see like a frame of an old man, and that's my grandfather. Yeah.
Okay,
my German grandfather, my German Spanish grandfather.
That's awesome.
Anyways. So yeah, man, that's interesting. That was a good choice, Javi. I like that choice. Yeah, the pill popping co-worker.
That's good.
But Hitchcock is British, right? Or no?
He has like that transatlantic accent, if anything, where it's like that sort of like proper golden
very
age
proper.
of Hollywood.
He was born in Essex.
Yeah, because I used to watch his show growing up, like after Hitchcock Hour. So
did you?
Yeah, I would do religiously. Like me and my brother, like every Saturday we would watch it.
Have you guys listened to this guy named Mark Ramsey does this podcast series called Inside, and he'll do like Inside Jaws, Inside Psycho, Inside Star Wars, and it's just sort of like it's basically just like a history of the making of these movies, but he does it in the form of like a radio drama, so it feels like you're kind of like hearing one of those old, kind of like radio shows. But he does one on Psycho, and he talks about how, which I never knew this, that when they made Psycho, he did it through Paramount, but apparently despite him having all these successes, they didn't want to put any money into it, so they gave him a budget of like $3 million, and then he ended up shooting it on Universal, which for whatever like convenience reasons, and his entire crew to help with budget, he used his entire crew from his TV show. So everything in terms of like the making of Psycho was a total shit show, and it was literally made by a TV crew, which isn't to say like people who work on TV can't be just as skilled in film, because obviously I think this proved that they can.
Right.
But it's just so funny when you think of Psycho as like one of the greatest films of all time, and like the crew who made it was like, I don't know, we were talking, like with your guys' film, it's like you kind of like you have to like work with what you have, and you're under all these constraints. But you never associate that with something like Alfred Hitchcock, Psycho.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, you would think it was like this like big production where they had everything at their fingertips, and they were able to just let their imagination run.
Remember, you also have to work around the production code because that was still around.
Yep.
So,
I don't know if this is true, but I heard that Hitchcock was so secretive about the film that instead of releasing a trailer, he released a 6-minute sort of like behind the scenes video movie where he just like goes around showing you how creepy things, like, oh, look at the house, look how creepy the house is. And so he never shows you anything about the movie. He just
have you seen it? It's on YouTube.
I heard about it, but I never seen it.
You can watch it. It's so fascinating.
Yeah.
So he's just like walking around set and he's like showing
it's just him walking on set and just talking about it. Man. And he kind of even like gives away spoilers. Like,
really?
What's the private eye's name, or the detective?
Arbogast.
He literally is at the bottom of the staircase and he's like, and here's where one of our characters gets stabbed to death and falls down. It's like, oh, you're just telling us it happened.
He has something so good it didn't matter if he gave 1 or 2 spoilers.
Yeah, exactly. It's like exactly. And they show at the end of the trailer, it's like they show the shower scene, but it's not Janet Leigh, it's someone else. It's like they didn't even use footage from the movie. They used like a different like promo shot. It's very weird.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He was like a weird, interesting guy, you know. The way he talked and like always wearing a suit and
But that was kind of like he was a man of his time in that regard, right? Like a lot of people wore suits back then, and even my grandpa would wear a suit all the time, so it was normal.
Danny, you made a good connection between Guillermo del Toro in his new Cabinet of Curiosities.
How
he's kind of like a Hitchcock-esque kind of guy.
He's
today. You don't see that a lot. It's like, Spielberg's like a household name, but it's like Guillermo. Like we're leading with the filmmaker. Like Guillermo del Toro presents. He's going to even talk about it.
Like,
yeah.
I do like that. Like he introduces his own project. Because Spielberg doesn't do that.
I love that,
and I love how he just like. For me, at least, I love how he embraces his Latino-ness, right? He's as a Latino filmmaker myself, he has the thick accent, and he I noticed that there were some Latino filmmakers that he showcased in that. By the way, I thought that was a pretty good series. It was cool. I like him a lot. I think he's really cool.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me a lot of Hitchcock in the way of like how type of movies he makes and just like his persona. Like even when he won the Oscar, like he's just talking about like film and how much he loves it. Like I think
he's also not afraid of genre. Like I feel like so many filmmakers, I feel like nowadays it's loosening up a little bit. But he's just like, I make horror movies, I make science fiction or monster movies, and I put everything into it. I put my heart into it, and you get these great movies where I feel like some people might like stick their nose up to it or something, but
like the Academy, like
exactly. They'll give like one horror movie like love, and then like you have to wait. There's like
5
one
years.
movie that year. It's only one.
Yeah. Danny, who do you have for Real Monster for Psycho?
Oh yeah. I just had 2. One of them was I had the score, because I love how, again, I was like really hyper aware of it this time.
Like when you read about them and like they didn't get along because like, Herman actually said that quote. He goes, Hitchcock only finishes the picture 60%. I have to finish it for him. Because they did 9 movies.
Know that.
Yeah, they did 9 movies together. So then like you hear the score. I don't even know what's more genius because the music is, and he also did Citizen Kane, which I fucking love Citizen Kane. But he's like one of the best composers of all time. And like, you hear the score and I'm like, all right, like the score amplifies the movie. Obviously, you have the visuals of it, but just the shower scene, just.
But it's like Jaws without John Williams. It's like it's not the same thing.
Exactly. It's like, and then the use of silence and when they put the music and don't put the music. Yeah, it's.
Well, that's the thing. It was like I noticed this time that when every time Marion's like anxiety gets spiked, the score comes in. So it's almost like the music is just it's doing all the heavy lifting for like everything she's feeling.
And you have like all these discordant stringed music.
Yeah.
And like very sharp, like the shower scene, like, And
I feel like you could convey, I feel like you get it. It's like, dying is scary. Like being attacked is scary. We know what Marion is like stressing over, but it's like, it works so well there. But it was like you said, you were talking about like the absence of sound too. When Norman is doing like the whole cleanup and hiding the body, there's no music because you're kind of like, and it kind of subconsciously kind of puts you in his head where you're like, oh, he's not stressed right now. He is, or he's just shut off, or there's like, he can't even like, he's not even receptive to stress because he's just kind of like going through.
He does it in a very calculated way. And then like they raise up the sound effects. So you hear like the like dragging the body and then like putting the body in the shower curtain and then putting it in the car. And then like little things that don't even like escape my mind. Like he throws the money in the trunk and it goes into the swamp. So like like the whole thing with the money is like an afterthought. It's like here, like he doesn't even know it's in the newspaper.
He's
like,
it's so crazy with Norman. He's so like there. Again, if we did some episodes on Friday the 13th, and Zach and Casey laughed at me for being a little too over sympathetic toward Mrs. Voorhees. But there is like the same with Norman is like you can see this, you can pull sympathy out of it. Yeah. But he's also so, like you said, like he throws the money. It's like he's also like so hard to relate to for that.
Yeah,
he's so complicated. It's like, wait, I don't relate to you at all, but I feel for you.
Like when Marion first gets into the hotel and the room, and he's like showing him the bathroom, like he can't even say the word bathroom. He's like, "Oh, here's this," and then she finishes it for him. He's like, "Oh, here's the bathroom." He's like, "Yeah, there." Like.
It's like I just want to like shake him, like just relax, just take it easy, get out of the house. Like my God,
give his fucking wife. Like,
it's like when the sheriff's wife is like, "Norman took a wife." She's like, "Oh, thank God."
It's so much relief. Like, oh, yeah, like, not a creeper. Kind of normal.
Like, be alone, be single if you want, but if not, if you're like Norman.
Even when he's picking the keys for the room, like you see him almost hesitate to pick room number 1. He like kind of goes over and then he finally goes back to room number 1. So he was like,
it's that internal struggle.
Couldn't resist though.
You're right.
Which makes him so interesting. Exactly. Like he's giving into this like dark temptation and you see that that's good.
Mm-hmm. And also like the size of the head of the hole, like it's so big.
I know. I was thinking to myself,
I'm like, he's done it so many times already because he probably started with like a small hole and he's like, okay, let me get more comfortable.
I wish they did a reverse and it's just like in her room and it's like a giant hole.
Yeah, I know, right? I was thinking to myself, what the hell?
It's like, Marion, that's on you.
You see an eye looking at you because the hole's pretty big, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like a premise for like the porno knockoff. The girl notices the hole. Ooh,
she's like, well, I might as well put on a show. Yeah.
And then what is it like? Scary Movie 2 in the movie theater. Oh man!
Talk about a twist.
When Perry did it, and, I think you were saying Scary Movie. And he's like, he sticks his head in the ear. Like in the glory hole, like
the dick comes out.
On the other side.
Oh my God!
That's how he kills him.
Oh man. I want them to do a Scary Movie sequel that's like playing on like elevated, like just call it elevated Scary Movie. You know, just like play with the whole like riff on like the witch and Hereditary.
That'd be
mixed
fun.
with Mr. Omar, like have a day scene. Like.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be like a Key and Peele episode.
You should just get Jordan Peele to direct it.
That's it.
Like, because he's already dipped his, he's obviously a comedian, but he's obviously horror. There's something there.
That'd be great.
We've got something, you guys. My second real monster and final real monster, this one's a little less serious, is Marion Crane. And I say that for the fact that she showers immediately without checking the temperature first. And is like smiling. I was like,
that's some social shit. Right?
That's psychotic. She's the true psycho of the movie. Like, who does that? That's crazy. And maybe if you do that, like, maybe I'm missing something. But good
maybe
Lord,
the plumbing in the '60s was better than it is today. Who knows? I doubt it.
Maybe this is a great motel.
It's just gone downhill because it's so far away from the highway.
That's right.
The amenities are fantastic.
Yeah.
The hot water comes right away. Everything is great.
Yeah, Norman, lead with that. Put that on the banner.
Yeah.
Right.
That's funny.
Oh man. Okay. Well, do you guys have anything else to add about Psycho before we wrap this episode up?
I mean, I feel like we could just go nonstop unpacking this thing.
Yeah.
So
David and Javi, thank you so much for joining us for this episode.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Tell us
Thank you for having
where and when people can watch The Welder.
Well, Zach, Danny, thank you for having us. We're privileged to have been here, to spend time with you guys, to talk about The Welder, talk about Psycho, Norman Bates, and just to hang out with you guys. You guys are awesome. You guys are amazing. We really enjoyed it. Especially I did. Javi says he sent me a text message saying that he hated it, but I personally loved it. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's fine.
Remember, Javi's a psycho, so he has that other personality. Actually, when he texts me from his other personality, it just says, his mom's name. I don't even want to put her out there like that.
Yeah.
But anyways, The Welder comes out on February 24th. So very, very soon. It's going to be on Amazon. It's going to be on Tubi and a few other platforms. So guys, go out and watch it. It's a crazy film with a very unique concept. I think that it's going to surprise a lot of people. A little indie film made in South Florida by just a bunch of dreamers, and we're just happy that it came to fruition, and it's just having it out there is really just a blessing for us. So go out and support it, guys. Support indie film, The Welder.
And don't come back until you're done with that movie. You don't get to listen to our next episode until you know you've seen The Welder.
There's going to be
you need to leave a review and give a review of The Welder and of our podcast, and then you can watch the next episode.
Then you can watch the next episode. Otherwise, no.
Mm-hmm. We're very strict on this podcast. We have an iron fist on our listeners.
Speaking of our next episode, we had recently just wrapped a trilogy of ghost movies. That was our last 3 episodes. This was our first episode in our next 3, which is based on, what is it, Danny? Inspired by true events. Inspired by true events. So with that being said, our next episode, we will be covering is it made in Australia? I don't know. Wolf Creek. We're going to do Wolf Creek.
Oh, good choice.
Yeah.
Good choice. This is a surprise for me, too, so that's exciting.
Yeah. So, listeners, you'll want to make sure you join us for Wolf Creek. Yeah. Whenever it came out in the theater was the last time I saw it. So, I'm kind of interested to jump back into that. So
to rewatch it and
Yeah. I remember it being very good. Very freaky.
Yes. So,
good choice.
Again, check out The Welder, coming to you February 24th on Amazon, Tubi. And guys, thanks again. This was a blast.
Yeah, thank you.
This was so much fun. Guys. Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, thank you all for listening. Now go meet some monsters.